So now we go down Pig Hill. This train takes some rather weird routes, which the only other trains that use are freight trains. Firstly, we go down Pig Hill, which is next to Lidl. Where Lidl is, I think there used to actually be some sort of warehouse. There was like a goods warehouse and the post office. Where Asda is today, I'm pretty sure that there used to be some rather large Royal Mail rail sorting office for post to go by train. And now there's Asda there, which has an eco disc. Albeit the eco disc there is not installed properly and has rather poor ride quality. I think I read on Alstom's website yesterday that Alstom wanted to make trains that were perfectly soundproofed. I don't want my train carriage to be perfectly soundproofed. I want to hear the motor noise. I mean, even if I wasn't a train enthusiast, before I was a train enthusiast and a motor noise enthusiast, and I wasn't really into the rolling stock, I was more into the routes. Before I was into rolling stock, I still liked it when there was train noise, and I didn't like perfectly silent trains. And it's because the motor noise gave me a little bit of a feeling of comfort that we were actually moving. I mean, in a high-speed train, that faint whistle in the background that the motor noise makes, it's not distracting at all. It's not like an indicator beep, that's annoying, but it's not distracting at all. And it's actually quite comforting. Yeah, it gives you a feeling of movement and energy. And now we're at approximately the location of Battersea High Street Station.
This train is the southern service to Milton Keynes Central. We are now approaching Imperial Wharf.
This train used to run an express service from Clapham Junction up to Shepherd's Bush. It would stop at West Brompton and Shepherd's Bush, and it would skip Imperial Wharf. Most of the trains stopped at Olympia, but some skipped Olympia in order to overtake the overground trains, but none of the trains stopped at Imperial Wharf. I rather liked having it as a sort of express service. I like variety like that. That is Lots Road, which is the London Underground power station, and has now been abandoned because London Underground connected to the national grid. It's rather nice. You can actually see it for miles around, much like its much more famous cousin Battersea power station. It's not very famous. It powers the underground, first the district line, then the whole underground, and it's not actually that famous. Battersea power station's a lot more famous. But Lots Road's just as good. That bit there is the district line from Fulham Broadway. This is West Brompton. I quite like this station. This is a southern train. When it comes to the strikes, I I'm on the side of Southern Rail. I think that the RMT have really lost their argument. They can't claim safety because it's been tested and found to be safe. They can't claim jobs or pay because then there'll be no redundancies. They say that it's going to reduce job security because they'll be more replaceable. And while that is true, while that is true, you should, if you want to strike like that, wait until they announce redundancies. Don't just strike there. Don't just strike. Wait until redundancies are announced before striking. So many things that I just at last minute decide to film. We're going under the foundations of Earls Court 2, and that is the demolished Earls Court 1. Earls Court Exhibition Centre was a familiar place for many celebrities like Kanye West and people who went there to do concerts and exhibitions. This is a church, I don't know which one, and now we're going under a road. We're going into Olympia. Olympia is not that interesting an area, but arriving into Olympia, you should be able to see
this train is the southern service to Milton Keynes
Olympia
Central.
has 3 tracks. There's an express track in the middle.
Olympia.
Sometimes there were passenger trains using that, not anymore though. This is the northbound overtaking track. Sometimes passenger trains used it, not anymore though. Nowadays it's mostly used by freight trains and by sometimes the Thunderbird locomotives use it to hurry back to the depot with trains that have broken down. And here is the only completed part of Ringway 1. The North Circular and South Circular, that was Ringway 2. M25 was an amalgamation of what was going to be Ringways 3 and 4, the parts that they completed. They amalgamated them. And that is the only completed part of Ringway 1, which would have been, it was a really horrible road around London city centre. Maybe people would have known it as the Boxway. I'd have known it as the Boxway. Because it's like, the design was to make it shaped sort of like a square. Ringway 2 was actually going to go right next to Barnes Bridge. And Ringway 2, they were going to build a new road bridge right next to Barnes Bridge. Oh, why did I seriously not remember to film that? It went all quiet for a bit and the air conditioning turned off and then came back on. Basically, we switched to the overhead wires. So now we're on overhead power. The aircon's gone off again. What's happening? Again, what happened was I accidentally pushed the button to stop recording and it went clunk. there's a red signal, but then that is for design in the other direction. That signal is just there for trains that change direction. Maybe if they have to change direction because there's a fault in the shoe. The way trains collect electricity from overhead wires is in almost everywhere a pantograph. There's Sprague poles, which have two types. There's the type with a wheel and the type with no wheel. There's also the Siemens. Siemens used this as a trolley, but then that was really heavy, so it required quite taut lines to work. Pantographs. There are two types of pantographs. The pantograph which has an arm on both sides, and the pantograph which only has an arm on one side. Generally, the one with an arm on both sides tends to be used by trams. The one with an arm on one side tends to be used by trains. There are now ones with arms on both sides that are getting rare. Mostly trains and trams with an arm on both sides were made in the USSR and in the Eastern Bloc during the Cold War, and the ones with the arm on one side were made in NATO and in the Western Bloc during the Cold War. Now we're under overhead wires. This train sounds no more interesting than under third rail. And so we go around Old Oak Common. A bit I had to stop filming because there's a flashing battery and I really want to film the battery. But here is the Laurel depot. Now we're going on to the West Coast Main Line. This is going under Wilson Junction station on the freight tracks. Transitioning from third rail to overhead wires means this train has now restarted, and the dot matrices are displaying startup messages rather than route information. This is Leighton Buzzard. It has a rather retro looking footbridge. This footbridge feels rather retro. That's the train I came in on. 377707. This is my bus. It's a Wright Eclipse with bus guideway wheels. So now we're leaving Leighton Buzzard station. This bus uses Old Road. It goes to the town centre. Leighton Buzzard High Street. Now it's our first busway, but this is a guided busway. We're going through the marketplace of Leighton Buzzard. This is the fire station, which is now a Pizza Express. I guess a bit like Guildhall in Reigate is now a Cafe Nero. And here the buses leave the high street. This bus has a very slow drive, but I don't think every two detrimental. I mean, it's tight fit down these narrow streets. This bus is now shaking like it could fall apart any second. Shoddy Volvo chassis. That's the shoddy Wright Eclipse. And here you can see the road goes down, and that was to cross under the railway which used to run here, which I'm going to walk along to get to Dog Kennel Down.